The story begins in the early 2010s, a time when the world was becoming increasingly interconnected. Through digital networks, banks once reliant on physical security measures were rapidly transitioning to online systems to serve their customers better. However, this shift also opened up new vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities that a group of highly skilled cybercriminals would exploit to devastating effect. The Carbanak Group, named after the malware they used, was not a single entity, but a loosely organized network of hackers, programmers, and money mules spread across multiple countries. Many of its members were believed to be based in Russia and Ukraine, though their identities remain shrouded in mystery. What set them apart from other cybercriminals was their level of sophistication. They didn't just hack into systems, they studied their targets meticulously, often spending months inside a bank's network before making their move. Their first known attack occurred in 2013, though it would take years for investigators to connect the dots. Their target was a mid-sized bank in Eastern Europe. The hackers gained access through a phishing email, a seemingly innocuous message, sent to an employee in the bank's IT department. The email contained a malicious attachment disguised as a routine software update. When the employee opened it, the Carbanak malware was installed on the bank's network. Once inside, the hackers moved cautiously. They spent weeks mapping the bank's systems, identifying key servers and monitoring employee activity. They even installed keylogging software to capture passwords and other sensitive information. Their goal was not to steal money immediately, but to understand how the bank operated. They wanted to know how transactions were processed, how security protocols worked, and where the weak points were. After months of observation, the Carbanak Group made their move. They manipulated the bank's accounting systems to transfer small amounts of money, usually less than $10,000, to accounts they controlled. These transactions were designed to fly under the radar, avoiding detection by both the bank and regulatory authorities. By the time the bank realized what was happening, the hackers had already disappeared, leaving behind a trail of confusion and financial loss. Emboldened by their success, the Carbanak Group began targeting larger banks in more countries. Their methods evolved, becoming even more sophisticated. They developed custom malware that could bypass antivirus software and exploit zero-day vulnerabilities, flaws, in software that were unknown even to the manufacturers. They also began using advanced social engineering techniques, such as posing as IT support staff to trick employees into giving them access to secure systems. One of their most daring attacks took place in 2014, when they infiltrated a major bank in the United States. This time, they didn't just steal money. They took control of the bank's ATMs. Using their access to the bank's network, they programmed the machines to dispense cash at specific times. When the moment came, money mules, low-level operatives recruited by the group, were waiting at the ATMs to collect the cash. In one night, they stole over $10 million. The Carbanak Group didn't limit themselves to cash. They also targeted online banking systems, manipulating account balances and transferring funds to offshore accounts. In some cases, they even impersonated bank employees to authorize fraudulent transactions. Their ability to blend in with legitimate activity made them incredibly difficult to detect. By 2015, the Carbanak Group had become a well-oiled machine. They had successfully targeted banks in over 40 countries, including Russia, the United States, Japan, and several nations in Europe. But their most ambitious operation was yet to come. In late 2015, the group set their sights on a consortium of banks in Southeast Asia using a combination of phishing, emails, and malware. They gained access to the bank's networks and began their usual reconnaissance. This time, however, they took their time, nearly 6 months, to plan their attack. When they finally struck, the results were staggering. Over the course of several weeks, the Carbanak Group siphoned off hundreds of millions of dollars. They did this by manipulating the bank's transaction systems to create fake accounts and transfer funds to them. In some cases, they inflated account balances and then withdrew the excess funds. In others, they simply transferred money directly to offshore accounts. The scale of the theft was unprecedented. By the time the banks realized what was happening, the Carbanak Group had already disappeared, leaving behind a trail of financial devastation. Estimates of the total amount stolen vary, but most experts agree that it exceeded $1 billion. The Carbanak Group's activities did not go unnoticed forever. In 2014, cybersecurity firm Kaspersky Lab began investigating a series of suspicious transactions at a bank in Ukraine. What they discovered was a sophisticated malware campaign that had been operating undetected for months. Working with law enforcement agencies around the world, Kaspersky Lab traced the attacks back to the Carbanak Group. The investigation revealed the group's methods in detail. They used a combination of custom malware, social engineering, and insider knowledge to infiltrate banks and steal money. They also employed a decentralized structure, with different teams responsible for different aspects of the operation. This made it difficult for investigators to track them down. Despite the progress made by investigators, the Carbanak Group remained elusive. Many of its members were believed to be operating from countries with weak extradition laws, making it nearly impossible to bring them to justice. To this day, no one knows the true identities of the group's leaders, or how much money they ultimately stole. The Carbanak Group's heist was a wake-up call for the banking industry. It exposed the vulnerabilities of digital systems and highlighted the need for stronger cybersecurity measures. In the years since the group's activities were uncovered, banks around the world have invested heavily in improving their defenses. They have implemented stricter authentication protocols, enhanced monitoring systems, and conducted regular employee training to prevent phishing attacks. Yet the threat of cybercrime remains. The Carbanak Group may have faded into obscurity, but their legacy lives on. They proved that with enough skill and patience, even the most secure systems can be breached. Their story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that in the digital age, the greatest threats often come from the shadows.